Hello guys and welcome to a special video. I've got a special guest today, his name being Rolend. He's from one of the most famous teams in our server, the NAEU server. He plays in B4U. B4U are one of the best teams that we have in our server and have won multiple tournaments and have even participated in the world tournaments. With his help, I've put together this video that will be a great way for you to work out which hunter you really want to pick up for the first time, or if you're on the fence with which hunter you want to pick and you need a little place to start off to work out which one you want to choose, this is the video for you. You might even learn some interesting information about the hunters that you didn't know. Let's begin.
Hell Ember, also known as Leo, was once a factory owner. One day he followed the instructions of his friend, the lawyer, and bought a small gun factory. However, the factory was in poor conditions, and the lawyer ran off with Hellember's wife and all his possessions. Later, the factory even burned down, and Hellember lost his life. During the Manor Games, he refused to write his name in the diary. Because of this, he was reborn as a hunter instead of a survivor. Hellember has not forgotten his past, and he swears to get revenge on the lawyer. Hellember's strengths comes from his phantoms and puppets. Phantoms are AI-controlled minions that automatically chase nearby survivors, helping him double team and cut off any escape routes. To release a phantom, Hellember must generate enough rage, which he gains whenever he is stunned or the survivors finish a full cipher. Once he receives first presence, he can plant or throw a puppet. Puppets act like a sentry, giving him vision of nearby survivors and allowing him to swap places with it. Additionally, he can transfer some rage into an existing puppet to make it start chasing survivors just like phantoms. After receiving full presence, he gets a second puppet to deploy. The strategy for Hellember focuses on his strong camping and map control abilities. This can really turn around a game, especially after his weak early game chase. When played properly, Hellember can hit rescuers twice in rapid succession using his phantoms and puppets. Additionally, during the later stages of the game, he can apply a lot of pressure by summoning puppets around the map, preventing survivors from decoding or escaping. Fun fact: Hellember is the only hunter that can use an ability while recovering from an attack or a stun. So be careful when you stun him, because he might summon out a phantom in response.
Smiley Face, also known as the Joker, has a difficult past connected to the survivor's acrobat and female dancer. After leading a difficult life being ridiculed as the sad clown in the circus, he falls in love with the female dancer and becomes suspicious of her husband, the happy clown, that took the spotlight from him. After accusing the happy clown known as Smiley Face of abusing his wife and discovering that female dancer didn't reciprocate any feelings for the sad clown, he decides to make Smiley Face disappear, and he takes his identity for himself, but not after receiving a disfigurement on his face after the original Smiley Face pours acid on his face. Later, it is assumed he burnt down the circus, leaving only the female dancer and acrobat alive. Smiley Face's abilities revolve around his rocket weapon that he can modify during a match to give him different variations to his abilities. His main ability is to use his rocket to dash for a long period of time, which after crashing into a survivor will deal one hit to the survivor, or after hitting a pallet will break it instantly. He unlocks his dash ability after 2 hits, first presence. By finding pieces of scrap metal around the map, he can modify his rockets to do 3 different things. Give him an infinite dash that will only stop after hitting something, the ability to increase his dash speed for 1 dash, or the ability to extend the healing time of a survivor that is hit by his modified rocket. Each modification can only be unlocked by collecting a specific material and by spending some time building the modification. The effect of each modification runs out after a hit or a dash. After receiving full presence, his base dash speed increases. The strategy for Smiley Face revolves around quickly eliminating a survivor and using the modified drill to hit a rescuing survivor. This increases their healing time and leaves them unable to rescue again. Also, due to his incredible mobility, he can quickly eliminate survivors or chair them, then use his dash to harass a rescuer before they get the chance to approach for the rescue, or to harass a nearby cipher within a few moments after chairing a survivor. A good Smiley Face player will master the dash controls and can use it with great precision, being able to turn back and forth and follow survivors in a kite with ease, catching them with tight turns and careful movements. An interesting fact: you can use blink whilst in the middle of a dash to go through an object. This means that your dash won't be interrupted because you'll be going through the wall instead.
Gamekeeper, also known as Bane, was once a friendly forest ranger. He was kind to others, even trespassers, but they liked to take advantage of him for this. One day they went as far as beheading Gamekeeper's elk companion and even putting his face in a bear trap. Although Gamekeeper survived this horrific experience, it changed him. He now shows no mercy and hunts down the trespassers while wearing the elk head on his neck. Gamekeeper's main weapon is his chain hook. He can throw it forward in a straight line, pulling any caught survivor right into his arms. Survivors hit by this will be marked, which reveals their location to Gamekeeper periodically for the next minute. If Gamekeeper does not catch a survivor, but instead hits a wall with his hook, he will pull himself rapidly to the wall and apply a shockwave to any nearby survivor, decreasing their movement speed briefly. Pulling himself to a wall also refreshes the cooldown of the hook one time. Gamekeeper is able to place traps at his feet, anywhere around the map. Any survivor that steps on them will immediately be imprisoned for a brief period of time, while also alerting Gamekeeper. These traps cannot be placed near a rocket chair with a survivor on it. Once he receives first presence, his chain hook additionally deals 50% of a normal attack damage upon hitting a survivor. After receiving full presence, Gamekeeper can continuously throw out his chain hook at walls without it going on cooldown until the chain hook misses or hits a survivor. Gamekeeper has a strong chase ability in specific areas, including those without walls, so he can have the maximum potential of his hook. His camping ability is also above average, due to his ability to trap and slow down survivors before they can even reach the rocket chair. With practice, his full presence chain hook can allow him to traverse the map relatively fast by essentially grappling continuously to nearby walls. While Gamekeeper is definitely a hunter that relies on chasing in specific advantageous areas, he can still make extraordinary plays with the range and mobility of his chain hook. Fun fact, Gamekeeper's chain hook should not be underestimated. It can pass seemingly through certain obstacles, such as the short boxes on the map Moonlit River Park. Combined with the auto-targeting and ability to Terror Shock, it can easily turn the tides on less wary survivors.
The Ripper, also known as Jack, has a difficult personality. Jack likely developed a second personality as a child, his normal side studying under a famous artist named James Whistler during the day, but at night his other personality comes out and takes control. His violent tendencies lead to murdering women on the street. It is assumed that Jack's non-violent side is fighting for control, but slowly the Ripper side of him is taking over, pushing Jack into more and more violent actions. His only solace is the time he spends painting, a brief period of time when normal Jack is in control. The Ripper's ability revolve around his claw and the mist he creates from them. Although Jack's abilities are quite simple, he is a force to be reckoned with when he's chasing you or camping a chair. His claws generate a mist on them that once he attacks will be fired in the direction of his attack. This mist will deal 1 hit's worth of damage on impact on a survivor. Not only that, but it will also leave a trail of mist on the ground where it travels over, and the survivor hit by this mist will also leave a trail of mist behind them for a brief period of time. Once he has received some presence, Ripper will start to go invisible, his red light and slight shimmer of where his body is being the only things visible. After standing in the mist, his invisibility will happen faster, and whilst invisible, his base movement speed is increased considerably. The strategy for Ripper consists of using his foggy blades carefully to hit a survivor without hitting them with your claws themselves. This causes you not to have attack recovery, meaning you can instantly continue the chase. While standing near a thin wall, Ripper can also fire his foggy blades through said wall, hitting a survivor on the other end. Foggy blades will travel over pallets and over windows, so hitting a survivor while they're in a vaulting animation is the best way to guarantee a hit. His invisibility is also very useful, since it makes it harder for survivors to know of his exact whereabouts. Whilst in this form, he also moves very quickly that can rapidly close the distance between you and a survivor. When camping a chair, the goal is to hit the rescuing survivor with your foggy blade, and then follow up with a normal hit. This will prevent the rescue entirely. An interesting fact, Ripper can hit multiple survivors at once if one survivor is in front of the other. The first survivor will receive the normal hit, and the other will get hit by the foggy blade.
Soulweaver, also known as Violetta, was once a famous freak show performer. Unfortunately, over time the audience began losing interest in her. Desperate to return to performing, Soulweaver enlisted the help of a mechanic to install flexible mechanical prostheses and gadgets on herself. She then created the Human Spider Show, which her boss naturally did not approve of. Frustrated, she ended up accepting an invitation from the manor. Soulweaver's special abilities cost some of her unique attribute, Thread, which replenishes over time. She is able to spend some thread and place strands of webbing between any two obstacles near each other. When she passes through her webbing, she gains brief acceleration for all her actions including moving, attacking, recovering, etc. When survivors pass through her webbing, they pick it up, applying one layer of the Entangle debuff. While survivors have a single layer of Entangle, their location is revealed to Soulweaver and they have a reduced interaction speed. A second layer of Entangle will also reduce a survivor's movement speed. A third and final layer heavily reduces both interaction and movement speed even further. At any point, instead of picking up an incapacitated survivor to chair them, Soulweaver can instead spend a large amount of thread to wrap up the survivor in a cocoon. The cocoon acts as a rocket chair at wherever the survivor was downed. Once she receives first presence, Soulweaver can spend some thread to spit out a ball of web in a straight line, applying 50% of a normal attack damage and a layer of Entangle to any target hit. After receiving full presence, Soulweaver spits faster at a lower thread cost. Soulweaver can move incredibly fast when she has 3 stacks of her webbing speed acceleration buff. This allows her to close distance and maneuver swiftly around obstacles during chases and while guarding a rocket chair. An experienced Soulweaver will be able to place webbing around tight areas to her advantage, as well as use the spitting half damage to provide more pressure to kiting or supporting survivors. Fun fact: Soulweaver's spitting ability has no maximum range, so it can hit a target all the way across the map. Then, in addition on maps like Lakeside Village, the spit automatically travels downward when Soulweaver is at a higher altitude, allowing her to snipe unsuspecting victims.
Geisha, also known as Michiko, was the best dancer in Yoshiwara. Probably raised in Ever-Sleeping Town, eventually she met a man named Mr. Miles. These two fell in love and moved to Mr. Miles' homeland. His father never really liked Michiko and warned his son that she didn't fit in. After returning from a business trip, Mr. Miles discovered that Michiko had disappeared. His father said that she had left with another man, but he refused to believe it and searched everywhere for her. It is theorized that she was murdered by the father and possibly sent to Lakeside Village to dispose of her body. Rumor says that a geisha roams the area near the Miles' house, and her face is scarred. Geisha's abilities revolve around her butterflies. By throwing them in a certain direction, she can then dash towards them, becoming intangible, and passing through any object in her way, as long as the object doesn't block her view of the butterfly. She can also rise up into the air, becoming invulnerable to flare guns, and cast her butterflies from her new vantage point, giving her more vision and more range. The strategy of Geisha is using the butterflies and dashes to rapidly shorten the distance between you and a survivor, using it to vault objects quickly or even follow survivors that are very far away from you. After casting a butterfly or attacking, Geisha transforms into her prajna form, which is slower than her base form, so using her base form to travel short distances is recommended. Whilst camping a chair, Geisha can rise up in the air, and when a survivor comes to rescue, she can fall back down, performing a falling attack that will hit without an attack recovery. This can quickly be followed up by a secondary attack. Interesting fact: Geisha has lots of powerful, strange interactions in the game, many of which take a lot of practice to master. One of the more powerful ones is the ability to blink through walls by instantly pressing the dash button after throwing a butterfly through a wall. This takes a lot of practice.
The Feaster, also known as Haster, is a messenger that prophesies the arrival of a dynasty which threatens mass destruction. Details about this messenger mostly remain a mystery, but some assume that he is the symbol for pain and suffering. Others believe that seeking him could reveal the gruesome truth of the world, and possibly even a path to enlightenment. Either way, he is a mystical figure with an inconceivable presence. The Feaster excels by using tentacles around the map that can strike survivors with unparalleled precision. These tentacles also apply an interaction speed debuff to nearby survivors. By actively chasing survivors, he accumulates charges of tentacles that can be summoned at any specific location. Then, the Feaster can command any individual tentacle in sight to target and strike a nearby survivor. Besides summoning the tentacles manually, one will also generate next to each survivor whenever any survivor gets injured or incapacitated. After receiving first presence, the Feaster will accumulate tentacle charges slowly over time, even when not in chase. After receiving full presence, he can mark a nearby survivor with a gaze, Tentacles near the survivor with the gaze can be commanded to strike the survivor with no cooldown and no range limit for the feaster. The feaster can be almost unstoppable when there are many tentacles scattered around the map. This is because it is incredibly challenging for survivors to decode, heal, or rescue while simultaneously trying to dodge the tentacles. However, his early game relies on the precise placement of limited tentacles in order to block off kiting routes. After chairing a survivor, his camp potential becomes very high when tentacles are placed near the chair to prevent an easy rescue. Fun fact, the feaster can use tentacles to physically block various elements of the game. This includes the coordinator's flare gun, the batter's ball, and even dashes from the forward's football or the wildling's boar in tight enough spaces.